people now are into making moonshine, and some people want to know more about it and they don't have enough information. But a lot of information that people are posting on YouTube is bad information. Be careful about the information that you're gathering when attempting to make moonshine. For instance, these people that just throw anything together and call it a still. I wouldn't drink water that was ran through some of these things that I've seen on YouTube. Another thing to look out for is people who say they're making corn mash, and they don't have anything that actually takes the starch from their grain and converting it into sugar. All they're making is sugar water that happens to have corn or other grains in it. They're not really making a genuine moonshine mash. All they really have is sugar water. So we're going to discuss a couple of things that you need to know about when trying to make moonshine. Now, like I said, moonshine is anything. Anything that you can get your hands on and ferment it and run it through a still is moonshine. Okay? It doesn't matter what you use. Now, people think that they are making genuine moonshine just because they're using corn. You're not making genuine moonshine just because you're using corn. The only reason the moonshiners used corn was because it was the cheapest ingredient available, and it also gave them the highest profits, so therefore they used it. So when I attempted to make some corn mash, and I always knew that there was always something missing when making corn mash. So I did a little experiment here. I bought a little bag here of cornmeal, which is just basically ground up corn, and I heated it up like other YouTube instructions say to do, and it was all nicely and stirred it up, and I put the concoction in a container like this. This is just for an experiment. I put it in a container like this and sealed it off, and for a few days it wouldn't do anything, and then it actually started to look like what appeared to be working. Now, it didn't do anything until I added yeast to it. People think that the yeast is making the alcohol. This is true. It is the yeast that makes alcohol. However, your corn contains starch, not sugar. So therefore the yeast does nothing to your grains. You have to convert the starch over to sugar. So I made this corn mash, and I added some yeast to it, and it was starting to ferment. After about a week, though, they would open it up, take a little sniff, and what I would smell was rotting corn. So I just dumped the whole thing out. Alright? Be careful of corn mash recipes that just say to use corn, sugar, water, and yeast. That is not a true moonshine recipe. You need malt. You have to have malted corn, malted barley, something malted to make authentic moonshine grain whiskey. Alright? Now, if you want to take a shortcut, we can throw that aside. We can make a corn moonshine mash using a simple ingredient. Right there. Corn syrup. This is a sweetener. It was already made from corn. They've already done half the work for you. Now all you have to do is mix it up, pour in the corn syrup, add some water, and add some yeast, and let it set. Now, it's almost as easy as that. Now you're going to need a container to put it in. Anything you have laying around the house that's a container will work great. Be sure to leave the cap loose, though. If you don't have any airlocks, just leave the cap loose to let the extra air out, and it'll work just fine. So now that's all we need right there is some corn syrup, some yeast, some water, a container to put it in, and you can make corn moonshine. When making a mash, consider this, that you need about 4 times the water that you have for sugar, because alcohol will only get so potent and it will start killing off the yeast. So if you were going to attempt this, I would start by taking whatever container you have. We'll say we're using this one, and I would mark this off in quarters. So I would fill up 1/5 to 1/4 with corn syrup and maybe some sugar for extra potency if you have a larger container, and then the rest fill up with water, and then top it off with a little activated yeast and let it set for at least a week, and then you will have some genuine corn mash moonshine. Alrighty?